Okay, I really didn't want to make a video about this, but I'm doing it just because these cocksuckers keep making these announcements and do something to piss me off. And so they're basically forcing me to respond to this shit. They released this FAQ and said something like, "Oh, these are the most commonly asked questions. These are the top questions, the most popular questions people have about the AES Plus." And of course, they ignore the fucking elephant in the room. They don't answer the one goddamn question everybody has been asking from the very beginning, the most consequential question, and that is, what the fuck is going on with the BIOS settings? Because the quality of this thing is entirely determined by whether you have any control over the Neo Geo BIOS settings. And I'm just going to go into why that shit is so important. I have like a, this completely, cleared out, main config, just so you can see what's going on with this dog shit. So, okay, so here's Samurai Showdown 2 in MAME, right? And actually, you know what? To really do this right, I need to run AES. So we're running the AES version, the home version of Samurai Showdown 2, right? So if we do this, I just want to clarify some shit here. The goddamn game, and most of them are going to be censored. Look at the blood. If I can get hit here, look at the fucking blood in the game. Of course, I see. Look at that shit. Green fucking blood. Okay, green goddamn blood. Okay. Now look at Metal Slug. If we run the AES version of Metal Slug. What's that? White fucking blood. Or sweat, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? Okay? Okay, so the goddamn games are going to be censored. Okay, now, even more egregious, deeper issues. Let's do the AES version of Viewpoint, okay? AES version of Viewpoint. I want you to notice something. Playing the game, right? Oh, I'm playing one player. What happens if I want to play Viewpoint with somebody else? I want to play two players. Look at what happens when I press player 2 start. Oh, look, they didn't join the game. By fucking default, the game is turn-based multiplayer. Now, player 2 gets to go afterwards, and you have to take fucking turns. It's lame. What happens when you play Viewpoint on, like an MVS machine where you can actually change all the BIOS settings? Let's see what the fuck is going on here. Oh, what the fuck is this? 2 players simultaneous. See how you can change that shit? Also, you can control whether the difficulty and display gets displayed as a persistent, HUD element, on your screen. So if you have like a CRT or an OLED, if you don't want that shit to burn into your screen, you can actually control whether or not you want to see that shit. If you don't want to see the instructions for the fucking game you've been playing for 30 years, for the rest of your goddamn life, you can turn off the instructions so you can just start playing the fucking game. You have control over this shit. So now that I made these changes, let's start a 2-player game, a Viewpoint. Oh, what's this? 2 players simultaneous. So here's the actual game, the real fucking game. Viewpoint, actually. Okay? If they don't let you configure the BIOS settings, you are not going to be really playing Neo Geo games. You're going to be playing some gimped bitch version of them that's censored, that's missing features, that is more cumbersome because you can't skip the instructions, whatever the fuck. All of these problems, okay? This is critical. This is the most important thing. If they don't answer this question, if they don't address this before this thing comes out, then you can completely write this thing off, because this is the whole thing. If they don't do that, it's going to objectively be worse than other options because we know that the AES Plus is based on essentially the Mister Neo Geo core. It's going to be functionally indistinguishable from just playing the games in fucking Mister. But in Mister, you can configure the BIOS settings. And the other thing too, that I want to harp on here is that they're not going to be able to patch this thing. However it ships, that's just what it is forever. Okay. And I don't know if you saw, but there was recently a new version of the Neo Geo development SDK that was released, and people can still make games for this. And it's possible that somebody could make some new homebrew game that just doesn't work on the AES Plus, but it works on real hardware. Now, if you're playing in MAME or if you're playing in Mister, it can always be patched. It can always be updated to make it work. But with that AES Plus, it just whatever it is at the time, that's what it's going to be fucking forever. Okay, that's a problem. They're blowing that off and pretending like that's not an issue, but it is a fucking issue. And there's just all of like the basic, input output things where if you play these games in MAME on a computer, you can, upmix the sound to support, surround sound setups. You can, use every different CRT shader. You can run the games at 4K, 5K, 8K, whatever. The AES Plus is just going to be locked at whatever it is. I don't even think it's 4K. I think it's 1080p, and it's just stuck at that. And so now you're going to be at the mercy of whatever upscaling is done by the display that you're using. It just has a lot of problems. And also, on top of all this other shit, you got to remember, there are problems in the Mister core. You can just look on GitHub, look at issues. It's not perfect. And to be fair, MAME isn't perfect either. Like, MAME still has a problem in Neo Turf Masters. So there are, and I mean while I'm bringing shit up here, I can I don't know. I didn't have the Neo Turf Masters ROM name memorized because being a heterosexual, I don't really play golf games. But I just want to show that MAME isn't perfect yet. It does have problems. So if you play fuck me. Okay, yeah, first stage in Japan. Okay, come on. See if you look at the top layer of clouds moving, see how the bottom 2 pixels for the clouds don't actually scroll with the rest of the clouds. That's a glitch in MAME. It's a problem in MAME. It's not perfect. MAME still has fucking problems with this goddamn game. I mean, again, luckily I don't play golf games, but but I said my point though is you can patch MAME, you can patch the Mister core, you can make changes there, but you're stuck with the AES hardware, okay? And so the other thing too is ignoring all that shit, right? Ignoring all that dog shit. I mean, we have to be honest with ourselves here. Fucking Saudis bought the rights to all the SNK shit. So basically, you're buying some product that may or may not have been bankrolled by the dudes who funded 9/11. So that's great, right? I mean, that really makes me want to get in line. And as much as people want to pretend that isn't a problem, oh, every company's evil, every company has this problem. Yeah, I'm sorry, like, they uniquely suck cock, okay? Those fuckers uniquely suck fucking cock. Don't pretend that everything is the same. It's like, nah, they're particular scumbags, okay? So really, you don't want to support it anyway. And the other thing too is, if you think about it, there are other options if you want to go for a really super authentic experience. I mean, like, yeah, check out that White Blood, by the way. And I wanted to bring up an example of that being something like this, like the consoleized MVS, machine that you can buy. That's going to let you change all the BIOS settings. It's going to let you install whatever those BIOS things are. to let you do the cheats, let you do all the configuration, whatever else you want to do, and the MVS games are way cheaper. So, like I said, to me, this goes in the category of this is a product for no one, and also like taking a step back and thinking about things, more philosophically. The whole age of fumbling around with cartridges and PCBs, it's fucking over. Okay, it's over. Like it's clunky, it's slow, it's tedious. I don't want to fumble with fucking carts anymore. Like if you have a Mister or MAME setup, you can just play every fucking game without fumbling around with shit. And if we're talking about like the quality of the actual play experience, consider that when you play Samurai Shodown in MAME, for example, you can actually bind the controls. So, you can do shit like, I don't want to press A and B to do a heart attack. I just want to, I want to play it like Street Fighter 2 or something, right? So you can do that shit. See how you can like bind this? You can bind, one joystick to multiple, buttons there. And that will let you, basically play these games better than you could play them originally. So I mean, again, there's so many reasons that it just isn't the optimal way to play things. And even if you are going to just admit and say, okay, look, I get all of these philosophical and intellectual reasons for not wanting an AES Plus, but at the end of the fucking day, when I was 12 years old, I saw the Neo Geo AES in a display case at Toys R Us or something, and it was my white whale, and I always wanted it, but I couldn't afford it, so I never got it. Even that argument actually falls flat. And I'll tell you why it falls flat. Because the 16-bit Neo Geo does not represent the same thing today that it represented in 1990. Because think about it. What is the Neo Geo? The Neo Geo represents making consumer gaming hardware with no compromises, impractically expensive gaming hardware for consumers at home with no compromises. That's what it means, right? But some shitty old 16-bit machine in 2026 isn't that anymore, because it's 2026 now. Today's Neo Geo is actually going out and buying a 5090 video card and the best CPU you can buy, and 64 gigs of RAM, and a 39-inch OLED 240 hertz display, or whatever the fuck. That is today's Neo Geo. Now, if you come back and say, well, hey, I can't afford that. Well, it's like, so guess what? Nothing's fucking changed from the 90s. You couldn't afford a Neo Geo in the 90s, and you can't afford a Neo Geo today. That's the bottom fucking line. Like, nobody wants to hear that, because it doesn't, it's not a beautiful message for you, and it's not fulfilling some fake, nostalgic sense of, oh, I can, capture, that thing that I, that was never able to, get back in the day. It's like, you can't do that. It's gone. The moment has passed. It's over. Okay? Like, playing this shit, nostalgia is actually a bad thing. The reason that we're interested in some of these games still is because some of these games are legitimately better than anything else you can get today. That's why we still like the Neo Geo, because you can go play 500 shitty indie games on Steam, and they all have crappier sprites than Metal Slug, okay? That's why we still like the Neo Geo. It's not out of nostalgia, it's because for certain things, it actually still is the best. But again, in terms of being the, top of the line, hot rod, best gaming hardware you can get, it isn't that anymore. So if your whole idea is, I'm going to capture my white whale, I'm going to do the thing that I couldn't do when I was a kid or whatever, like, no, you're not going to get that. It's over. Like, you can either go out and buy the $7,000 gaming PC, or if you can't afford that, you're still the kid at Toys R Us who can't afford the fancy toy. That's the reality. That's the hard truth that nobody's going to tell you, because they're trying to sell you this load of shit. I mean, and really, on top of everything else, what gets me about this is that they're using fucking flash memory for these reproduction cartridges. They're not even real ROMs in there. They're not even real etched ROMs. So they're not going to last as long. They're not like the real deal. And when their whole marketing angle is like, "Oh, this is the real deal. It's just like a reprinting of the games coming from the original company." But it isn't. It's a fake replica that's cheaper and lamer than the original. That's the reality. Like, I'm just saying, there isn't any scenario in which this thing is the best option. That is the whole fucking problem here. There are just better options any way you go. That's the problem with the AES Plus, okay? That's the fucking problem with it. I honestly can't really come up with a valid reason to get that specific product. Like if you really insist on like original hardware and that's how you want to do the shit, a consoleized MVS is objectively the best solution. It's the original hardware with no compromises, and any games that worked on original hardware are gonna fucking work on that. Like that's what you want in that case. You don't want some piece of shit that may or may not work with some software down the road. So again, fuck the AES Plus, fuck the AES in general. I mean, and in fact, let me tell you my little story here. I owned a Neo Geo AES in the 90s. Look at me, like what a fucking fancy pants I am. I sold my Neo Geo when I first heard that Samurai Showdown 1 was going to be censored. I fucking immediately sold it. I was irate. I was fucking throwing shit because it betrayed the entire goddamn point of that machine. And that's why it's so critical that they not fuck up the BIOS settings on this thing, because really, if that's the whole point of this. The whole point is to play those games uncompromised. And if after all this shit, people are buying these machines, buying this crap, and then getting some censored games, you're a fucking rube if you go for that. You got played. Like, who wants to play censored versions of these fucking games? That's ridiculous. So really, I personally always have kind of looked, down my nose at the AES, ever since that, because I always just kind of thought it was kind of like the lame censored version of the Neo Geo, and it kind of seems bizarre to me that it's being sold as this, the AES, the AES has such a great reputation, it's such a beautiful thing. It's like, no, that was a censored piece of shit that got the crappy versions of the games that you wouldn't even want to play. I mean, and it even goes back to the joysticks as well. I mean, the AES joysticks were fucking dog shit. The buttons on them were mushy crap. Like, the buttons were really mushy and crappy. They weren't arcade quality buttons. And so I'm just thinking, like, why do you even want that? I mean, like I said, this is all nostalgia for something that never existed. This is fake, phony nostalgia for something that it doesn't even exist. I mean, like the AES controllers were never anything to write home about. Like the buttons fucking sucked. And they used, cheaper, joysticks even. They really weren't that great. So again, that is what's going on with the AES Plus. It isn't worth it. There are way better ways to play all this shit. Groovy MAME, Groovy Mister with a CRT, just using MAME with a fancy new display, a consoleized MVS Mister. They're all better. They're all fucking better solutions. So I don't want to hear about how fucking great that this shitty Saudi zombie product is when it really is just lame cash grab. And really, like, one last thing I'll finish on here too is, you're not even getting the original versions of all the games, because I guarantee you that these corrupt fucks will go in and further censor shit to appease all of the global interests going on. So, for example, when Baseball Stars was released on, I think, some of the Nintendo stores and shit like that, they renamed the Taiwanese teams so that the word Taiwan wasn't in there to appease their fucking Chinas. Okay? So again, don't be surprised if when they start releasing some of those sports games for this thing, you see censorship in areas like that. Like I said, this shit is all about lame, censored versions of games. I mean, they even had to rename Neo Turf Masters because of some licensing bullshit. You know that they won't do a reprinting of Puzzle Bobble because Taito, probably won't give them the license to do it. I don't even think they can do Viewpoint because Sega has a license for that. And like I said, this is all just going to be just cheap shit that they're going to push out. So again, fuck this. Fuck the AES Plus. It just isn't worth it. There are better options. I know that it makes a nice little story. Oh, they're releasing the Neo Geo, but really, it's just what you have today is already better than this.